You're listening to the Love Unplugged podcast, episode 83. As a child, we have the amazing ability to fall down and get right back up again without any hesitation. But as we grow up, we tend to lose this ability. Fortunately, that's not the case for my guest today. She experienced failure in business, but did not let that stop her from trying again several times. Today, we learn about her experiences, how she navigated the feeling of failure, and where she is today with her new business. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Hey there, I'm your host, Jessica Fergon, and I am passionate about doing the inner work needed to reach your goals. Let me be your guide as we navigate all the fears and insecurities that surface when it's time to step outside of your comfort zone. Along with my knowledgeable guests and industry experts, I'm here to teach you how to reawaken your life purpose and passion and create the steps to turn your intentions into action. Ultimately, my goal is to empower you to rise above those blocks holding you back and start living a life that you are worthy and deserving of. So come on, it's time to slow down, find a comfy spot with your favorite organic tea, and get inspired. Thank you for tuning in to the Love Unplugged podcast. Hello, loves. Today I am joined by the lovely Justina Julia, founder and creative force behind the eCourse Creative, where she helps busy entrepreneurs pivot their business and launch their online course with confidence with her done-for-you service course launch and marketing plan, which I am just super excited to dive into because pivoting is a hot topic right now, especially with the COVID pandemic. So welcome, Justina. I'm so honored to have you as my guest, and I'm so excited to learn all about your story and advice. But before we start, for those that don't know you yet, I would love to hear a little bit more about you.
Yeah, first off, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be part of your podcast. So as you mentioned, I'm the founder of the eCourse Creative, which I started in the midst of the pandemic. I'm actually originally from Toronto, but currently live in Vancouver. And when I'm not working, I immerse myself in the world of triathlons, which I actually did my first triathlon back in September it was 2 years ago, so 2018. And I'm currently training for a half Ironman. And what I actually truly believe is that my training has tremendously impacted my journey towards entrepreneurship, in the sense that it not only challenged me physically, but as mentally, and strengthened my resilience to building a business.
Amazing. Okay, so I kind of want to talk about this a little bit. What is a triathlon?
Yeah, so a triathlon involves swimming, biking, and running. So it's 3 sports, and there's different distances as well. So I did a sprint, which is about 750-meter swim, 20-kilometer bike ride, and then a 5-kilometer run.
That's a lot. So, I mean, to train for that, you've got to be pretty dedicated and consistent with your training efforts in order to be able to actually accomplish and finish the triathlon, right?
Yeah, it is not an easy task, especially if you're doing longer distances. It definitely takes commitment, and you really need to schedule it. And I'm training for a much longer one too, so you have to think about, proper nutrition, training on the daily, making sure that you're putting in enough sort of effort into it as well. It's not just going for a leisure 30-minute run. Like, there's a lot of things that go into it. And so it's definitely challenged me to show up and just show my commitment just to not only to myself, but it's also shown me how it impacts my relationships and my work ethic too.
It's amazing. That definitely would prepare you for entrepreneurship.
For sure.
All right. So what was your career prior to starting the eCourse Creative?
So prior to starting the eCourse Creative, I was working for a tech company as their marketing manager, where I focused predominantly on email and content marketing, as well as event planning. And most of my career was actually focused in marketing, but in various industries. So I've worked in the health and wellness industry, or apparel, and of course, technology.
And did you go to school for marketing? Like, was this something that you were aiming for, to have a career in that field?
Yeah, so my background, I have a Bachelor's of Arts in Communications and Web Design. and marketing was definitely part of that, those two buckets. And it was, I think when I first started, I really wanted to get into web design, and marketing sort of just fit into that bucket as I progressed through my career.
Gotcha. Now, what prompted you to end your marketing career? Was it due to COVID specifically? How did you handle that change? When did it actually happen?
Yeah, so unfortunately, due to COVID, there was a shift in the business structure, which impacted my role, and it was definitely something. It was a difficult transition. It was a bit of a shock, but as you sort of understood the business impact during the pandemic, I understood the tough the business decision that they had to make. And so, although it was, as I mentioned, like a hard transition, it was sort of like a blessing in disguise just because I've always dreamt of starting my own business. And I feel like this was the opportunity to really just jump in and get things started. And also, I feel like the pandemic was a good opportunity for myself, and I've talked to others as well, where to really just ground yourself and reassess what's important in your life, both in your personal and in your career.
I 100% agree with that. As hard as COVID has been, it's definitely brought on some blessings in disguise for a lot of people, including myself. I was always worried about quitting the night job and being able to financially support the family and whatnot. And with COVID, it kind of forced us to do that. Mm-hmm. And everything turned out okay. But it was that push that I needed to actually take that jump.
Yeah. And it challenges you to pivot and test your ability to sort of make changes.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. Now, did you always want to be an entrepreneur running your own business?
Yeah, I always had this strong desire to start my own business. I was actually first introduced to the world of entrepreneurship at 2011. I actually took a trip to Montreal, and I came across a craft market, and there was just so many vendors, from painters to woodworkers and jewelry makers, and I was just blown away by all the art and the handmade crafts. And I guess I never really noticed it before. And I just I thought to myself, wow, how incredible is it that these people make a living from making things that we use on a day to day. And I wondered how hard could it be? So I sort of took that opportunity. I went back home and I started to learn how to make jewelry. So I watched YouTube videos. I just sort of tried making jewelry just by trial and error. I went to different shops and just bought tons of material. And fast forward a couple of years, I was selling on Etsy. I was showing up at different craft markets, and my jewelry actually was featured on a talk show, which was really excited at the time. But the more I focused on making money from this passion project, I was just feeling very drained and uninspired. I just feel like I was focusing so much about how to make the next dollar versus the craft itself. So I decided to close shop because I felt it was just unmotivating and uninspiring. And throughout my 20s, I also had an interest in health and wellness. So my sister, who was studying naturopathic medicine at the time, taught me a lot about food intolerances and how foods impact your mood. So I began to invest more time in learning about nutrition and enrolled in a nutrition program. So I'm actually currently certified as a holistic nutrition consultant. And for a while, I had a handful of clients and I helped them create their own meal plan. And I just had this I truly enjoyed talking to my friends and family about nutrition and sharing the knowledge with my community. But I almost felt like there was a resistance. And although I had a few clients here and there, it just never grew to become a sustainable business for me. So I sort of unofficially decided not to pursue that full time. But in the middle of sort of the jewelry business and nutrition in the last couple of years, there were so many failed attempts at launching either other services or products. And to be honest, most of the time I almost felt like a failure just because I just thought, okay, well, I stopped doing this business, or I didn't treat it as a business. It was more like a side passion project. And so I sort of felt defeated. But I don't know when it was that my mind sort of shifted. Maybe it was in the midst of like training for the triathlon, or just I've done a lot of mindset work as well. But I've come to realize that I've acquired 9 years of knowledge and skills and experiences that equip me to finally launch the eCourse Creative with confidence. And so I now see all those attempts not as failures, but just as like stepping stones to where I am today.
Wow. Okay. So I have some questions on that. Back to your jewelry business, when you started focusing more on the making money aspects versus on just the passion of creating, how did that shift happen? Like, and how did you deal with that? Because like for me, I've just come out of that place where I started my blog and my podcast. I was like, what? I love it so much. I don't care if I ever make a penny doing it. It's something that I'm just super passionate about. And then I started focusing on the money aspects, and that completely took out my creativity. It kind of stopped me in my tracks, basically, and definitely impacted how I showed up in the business. And now I'm trying to focus more so on just why I love this. So I kind of want to understand from your perspective why that shift happened for you and how it was going through that. Like, how did it affect your business?
Yes, when I first started making jewelry, it was very meditative, and it was something that I could do for hours on end after work. And it would be like 2 a.m. I'm like, wow, like so much time has passed, but I truly enjoy the creative aspect and putting things together and wearing it. And then once I started wearing my pieces, people were complimenting them and asking if I sell them. And that's sort of where it all started in terms of wanting to set up an Etsy shop and joining craft markets. And the more I did it, I didn't have a plan in place, which I think if you have a business or you have an idea where you want to pursue it as a business, you need a solid plan. And I just sort of created and tried to join all these markets and sell online and try to come up with strategies. And it was taking away from the creativity, just like you mentioned for yourself. You're not in sort of like that headspace of being able to innovate new ideas. And so I just felt very uninspired, and it just felt more like a chore than sort of like a creative outlet. And it wasn't meditative anymore. I was sort of creating just for the sake of creating more products so I can sell. And it's not what I intended my jewelry passion project to be. I think I was so also caught up with other crafters who were making it big in the industry. And I sort of wanted to emulate that and be in alignment with them. But I would say I was forcing it versus leading it in a more natural pace.
Now, is that why you decided to close shop? Is because it became more of a chore and your creativity and your passion was kind of lost in that process?
I would say so. And I think since my creativity, I would say, was a bit sort of dimmed down, I wasn't making the impact that I wanted in terms of, wearing jewelry to feel more confident and just to showcase your style. I feel like there was a correlation between, I felt uninspired and therefore I am not creating the highest quality products. And if I'm not creating high quality products, then my sales are low or non-existent. So sort of I saw that I wasn't really going anywhere with the business being where I am. And I realized just by, writing things down, journaling is a huge part of my daily routine. And so I noticed that, I don't need to make this a business. I love this just as sort of a meditative task. And I'd rather do it for myself than to create something of it. And there's nothing wrong with that. At the time, I thought, well, I'm such a failure for not being able to make this as a business. But I've noticed not everything can be a business. There's some things that you can truly enjoy just for the simple task of doing it versus monetizing it.
I love that. That's so true. So true. Now, when it comes to your failed attempts at launching other services and products that you had going on as well, what did those experiences teach you? Like, did you notice a trend that maybe happened in every situation where that's why it failed to launch? Like, what kind of learnings did you get out of those?
I would say the biggest sort of takeaway is to try things. Like, you can have ideas, but you won't know if they are the big business idea if you don't try. And planning is a huge thing as well. You need to have sort of like a game plan to move forward. And I don't regret any of those attempts because it's taught me so much in terms of planning a launch or being able to source materials and connect with people in your network. And I think it's taught me so many skills that at the time I maybe not have realized it, but it sort of got my business, like I got to wear my business hat and develop these skills that would later benefit me in where I am today. And if anyone is wanting to pursue and be an entrepreneur, if you have an idea, I would highly recommend that you just go for it. You never know where that idea will lead towards. Like, you may have a completely different idea, or you may stick with the same one and develop it over time and monetize it. And so that would be sort of like the key takeaway. And also follow your gut. I think that's a big thing as well. Like, you can force something for so long, but if you don't feel like it's the right thing to do, it will never become what you were hoping it would. So really trusting your gut on that sense. And that's what I did with my jewelry making. I sat with myself and said, okay, do I really want this? Like, people are telling me to pursue it, but I sort of lost touch with it, and I've abandoned it, or I just sort of discontinued it.
Gotcha. Now, when it came to feeling like a failure, those feelings that you had to sit with, a lot of people experience that or are scared of even trying because they don't want to feel like a failure. So I'd love to know how you got out of that mindset. Like, how did you deal with those feelings to be able to come out the other side feeling better?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is surrounding yourself with a supportive community. Ever since I started with my jewelry business, I made sure to surround myself with other creatives, other entrepreneurs. And over the years, I've noticed a pattern, and it's that people don't know what they're doing. Like, we're all in this together. Nobody has like a blueprint of life or a business, and we're all just doing like trial and error. And I think being surrounded by other entrepreneurs working for small businesses and even larger companies as well, you just notice that people are just trying their best. They're taking action. They're strategizing. They're not waiting for something to happen. It's better to try something and fail than not try at all. And that's sort of the biggest thing. Like, I've talked to so many of my friends who've also started businesses, and they also have the same feelings. And at some point you're like, wow, like, this is amazing. Like, I'm not the only one feeling this way. And you can sort of like rely on each other as well to get feedback and ask them, like, what have you done, ever since you've, your failed business or, your first client, like any success or failure. Although I don't even like to call it a failure either. I feel like it's a lesson learned. You either learn or you thrive, and there's no such thing as failure in my eyes, to be honest. It's a journey that we all take in life and business.
Exactly. I definitely agree. At one point or another, you're going to fail at something, and it's not a negative thing. failing is just an opportunity to learn more about yourself, about what you like, what you don't like. It's natural to fail at anything, really. Like it's just part of life. And it's really what matters is how you get back up after.
Exactly. You almost want to think about what would you tell a small child, if they trip up and fall. You don't tell them, oh, like you can't walk, like you're a failure. You just tell them, get back up. It's okay. You're not hurt. Let's try again. And I feel like we sort of lose that as we sort of move towards adulthood. And I think we just need to give ourselves some empathy, and just nobody has the blueprint to life. And so let's support each other and learn from our actions and take action as well.
Totally. I love that you brought that up, because I was just talking to a friend about this, where we were talking about it, like failures in general, and comparing it to when you're a child, like when you're first learning to walk. It takes multiple attempts to like stand, and you fall on your butt and you get back up and you keep trying and you try. And when you're playing games or when you're like learning to ride a bike, I went into a tree the first time I tried to ride a bike, and I got back up and I tried again. Like, where did we lose that ability to just pick ourselves back up and just to keep going and to try again, and to not let the experience of not accomplishing it on the first try, like, when did that stop?
I don't know. I think it's just the exposure to media. You don't know how other people react to it either. And I have no idea, to be honest, but it's something that we all have to work on, and the learning never stops, to be honest. So you just need to have, just be kind with yourself.
Totally agree. Now, how did the idea to start the eCourse Creative unfold?
Yeah, so throughout my career in marketing and communications, I actually took up a lot of freelance jobs here and there for website development or planning marketing strategies. And at the beginning of the year, I was actually helping my sister set up her online course using Thinkific, which is an e-learning platform. And I had so much fun learning the back end and setting it up for her. I think for as long as I remember, I always liked developing websites, working on the back end of projects in terms of event planning or marketing strategies. And so I just had so much fun putting together her course. And I sort of had a light bulb moment when I was doing it. I thought to myself, like, wow, like I wish I had this job of just creating courses. And I told this to my sister, and nothing really came of it at the time, but it's just something that I ingrained in my brain at the time. And I just started spending my evenings after work learning about the platform, learning about the e-learning industry. And I had such a clear vision that I decided to work towards building what is now the eCourse Creative. And there's actually two things that I do sort of on the regular, and that would be journaling and visualization practice. And so I have a tendency to, maybe once a week or every other week, write out my goals for the month or for the upcoming months. And sometimes I don't know the specifics, but it's just, I write down how I want to feel. So what does my day look like? What would it be like if I were a full-time entrepreneur? And every night before bed, I would also visualize my new reality. And this is the funny part. So around January or February, I wrote down my goals. I want to have a creative business, helping people pivot their business and really be able to showcase their talents. And I also, my mantra, or I guess what I would say out loud as I visualize my new reality, is that I will have a new job by June 1st. And I actually chose June 1st, like a specific date. And I'm not entirely sure why I chose that date, but I kept repeating that every single night, probably like 10 or 20 times right before bed. And fast forward to mid-May, I got the news that I was no longer going to be working for the company. And my last day was the end of May. So it was very funny to realize that in the middle of like transitioning, and um, it's like, wow, like I created this for myself. Like I wanted it and I got it. So why am I being sad about it? This is my chance to work towards the goal that I set for myself. So that's sort of how it happened.
Amazing. Now, what did you experience through visualization? How did it help you get super clear on what you wanted to do?
So I find that visualization is very much sort of like a calming technique for me. I tend to do it right after my meditation. And when I first started visualization, or my visualization practice, and writing down my goals, it was a bit terrifying, only because in the sense of like, I always think one step ahead, like, okay, how's it going to happen? Like, and there's just so many moving parts that it almost becomes overwhelming. But I sort of resisted to control these thoughts, and I just sort of let them happen as I thought about what it is that I want to accomplish. And at some point, there was just so much clarity that came to me. Like, you don't need to have everything figured out. You sort of, I feel like we all have the answers that we need to get started, and we just need to listen to that voice inside of us. And so during my visualization practice, I was able just to sort of quiet the mind and just focus on sort of the goals that I wanted to achieve. And as I was working on my business, sort of creating the messaging and the branding, it was flowing with ease. Like I've never experienced something like this before. It was just all these ideas were like flooding in. Everything just felt so aligned. And I actually had a friend who is also a business owner, and she was like, wow, like she's seen me launch other side businesses in the past, and she mentioned like everything just seems so authentic, and you just seem to exude this like confidence when she was seeing me show up on social media and in different sort of meetings online. So I think that was sort of a sign like this is the right path for me. And so I kept up with sort of the practice, and just I tried to not focus too much on what other people are doing or what I should be doing, and just sort of listening to my inner guidance. And I would say that journaling is also one of the key aspects to clarity. And it's just a great way to release any stressors and get new perspective on things. So sometimes I'll answer prompts when I journal, and other times I'll just write what I'm feeling and thinking and just do like a big brain dump. And I just find there's just so much clarity in being able to write down what you're feeling, even if it's not related to business, just releasing all that tension. And sometimes there'll be times where I actually don't feel like writing at all or visualizing. Like I just feel like it's sometimes such a big effort depending on the day that I've had. And when I feel like that, I try to incorporate movement. So whether it's going for a run or going for a bike ride, and I find that movement really inspires creativity and helps me stay motivated. And I always have like a light bulb moment or business ideas that I want to execute when I'm on my run. I think it's just having to focus on running and changing my scenery and like getting the heart pumping. Like it's something that helps me quiet the mind, and again, also release stressors to help me think more clearly.
Awesome. I mean, I definitely struggled with journaling, but I definitely see the value in it myself as well. I do a different type of journaling where I always write down like what I want my future to look like. And that helps me visualize and really stay focused on my goals and where I'm heading. But I definitely think that everybody should do some form of journaling, whatever speaks to them and helps them. There's something so incredible about writing things down and seeing it and focusing on it and just kind of letting everything pour out of you.
Exactly. And I feel like a lot of people may think that journaling is required on a daily basis, but it's not. Like, you can write as often as you'd like, but I always recommend it when you're feeling a lot of emotions, and I just writing it down. There's even science that proves that writing things down, you're more likely to achieve your goals. So I think that's another reason why I do it as well. But it's also very therapeutic to me. I think I truly enjoy writing, and I feel like once you start writing, you'll just get a new perspective on things, and just rereading it and speaking out loud, and you really sort of come to realize what your next steps should be and what action you should take.
Totally. Now, how do you feel about this new venture that you're on? Do you feel it is your purpose? Like, what does that feel like for you?
It feels very rewarding right now. Like, I've already been able to work with a handful of clients. I've been so fortunate to be able to connect with entrepreneurs in such varied industries. And I've always wanted to help people in some capacity. And I think that's something that I've noticed recently, is that, I started with nutrition. I wanted to help people feel better. And there's always like this genuine desire to just be of service. And this came at a great time because businesses are pivoting right now, and I can help utilize my knowledge where other people may have no idea how to even create a course or implement marketing strategies. Some people don't even know what marketing is or what it entails. So being able to utilize my skills and my experience to help them share their knowledge is so rewarding. And I truly believe that everyone has something to offer. I think that we can all learn from each other. And maybe this is why I feel so much more aligned, is because we all have a purpose, and I'm sort of the support system for that individual. And I truly care about people fulfilling their purpose and spreading the message of what they do and help people live more fulfilled lives and more make positive changes.
Gotcha. Now, what is it like pivoting, starting a brand new business during a worldwide pandemic? Are you having to do things a little bit differently to adjust to the current circumstances?
So starting a business during the pandemic has been interesting. I've been connected with a handful of entrepreneurs, and seeing their businesses shift has just been very eye-opening. And it really puts things into perspective in terms of being able to prepare yourself for these situations in the future. And I feel very fortunate that my business has already originated online. It's not a physical business that I'm transitioning, and is of service to those businesses that are having to pivot during the pandemic. And I was thinking about whether I would have done anything differently, whether when it was not the pandemic. And I don't think I would have done anything differently. I think just the messaging may have been tweaked a little bit now, considering that businesses are having to diversify their income and pivot online if they were sort of a brick and mortar or one-on-one in person.
Gotcha. Now, what would your advice be for those struggling to figure out what their purpose is, or trying to make sure that it aligns with them on every level before, moving forward with the business?
One thing that I would definitely recommend to start with is to implement a practice that inspires creativity and helps quiet the mind. I know that even prior to the pandemic, I feel like life was very fast-paced, and there's just always something that we need to get done. And sometimes we don't have the time to just sit with our feelings and just sit with ourselves and just listen to our inner voice. And there's just true awakening when we're able to sit in stillness and listen to ourselves and just quiet the mind. Your body is always constantly telling you things. And so you have to carve out some time to really be in stillness. And when you do have ideas that come to you that you want to pursue, but you feel too scared to pursue, my biggest advice would be try it. It's scary, but I think the more you put yourself out there, you'll be able to build more resilience. And as I mentioned, failing different business launches, it was really hard and felt like a failure. And sometimes that really hits hard, and you don't want to try again because sometimes the pain is just too much to bear. But I feel like if you support yourself or you surround yourself with supportive people, and friends and family that help you get back on your feet and help you pivot your idea, there's just going to be like an immense positive outcome, regardless if you pursue the idea or not. And lastly, if you do have an idea, to put a plan in place and to assess whether or not it is a profitable idea. And what I tend to do with my clients in terms of online courses is that I help them validate their online course topic before they even implement it, just to avoid putting so much time and money into it. So really do your market research and, have a high level idea of what it is that you want to achieve, and assess the market and see what the trends are. And you really got to do your research. But I think you're also going to be able to, get more clarity just by really listening and tuning in to what your mind and your body is telling you. I think our gut instinct is so powerful, and you really need to assess that and be able to tap into that resource.
Amazing. Now, what are some key learnings that you had creating the business that, others could benefit from learning about if they're navigating a similar journey to you?
So I would say that I have 3 key learnings that have helped me create my business. And the first one being that no one knows what they are doing. And this has opened my eyes and has sort of relieved any pressure that I put on myself when establishing my business. And it sort of gave me sort of like a clear go ahead to just pursue my business and go after my goals. So I actually had a discussion with a business owner who had about 20 to 30 employees. And he outright told me that most of the time he has no idea what he's doing. Yes, he has goals that he wants to hit. He has strategies in place, but it's very much trial and error. There's definitely some that have a higher success rate or will work at different times in the business. And I think it was such a powerful discussion that I had with him, because it just made me realize this person has been in business and has started a successful business for 20 plus years, that it gave me that comfort that, okay, if he doesn't know what his next steps may be in a couple months and he's running a successful business for over 20 years, I can do it as well, as long as I support myself or surround myself with a supportive community. And the second key learning would be to trust your gut. Like I mentioned before, our bodies are constantly telling us and helping us tune in to our bodies to really, assess our environment and to be able to take action that will positively move us forward and teach us lessons. So I would say implement the practice that helps you quiet the mind. And if you have like that fire inside you to run with that business idea, go for it. The worst you can do is fail, or not fail, as I mentioned, but learn from that pursuit and just pick yourself up and keep going. And then the third one would be focus on building relationships. I think that is the biggest thing that you can do for your business that will help you succeed both in personal and professional life. And, you never know, the next interaction that you have, you never know where that will lead. And so really make sure that you're establishing meaningful conversations with people and meaningful relationships and rely on each other. I don't think there's no such thing as competition. There's only collaboration. And I've met so many people in my industry that have done very similar work or offer the same services as me, and we rely on each other to help build our businesses. And it's just so powerful. And so really focus on building strong relationships with people in and out of your industry.
That's great advice. I love that. Now, I want to shift to a personal level with you. What does self-love mean to you? And how are you taking care of yourself during this difficult time that we're all experiencing?
Self-love to me means respecting my boundaries. As an introvert and a highly sensitive person, I definitely find that I need my space and my alone time to recharge. And during this pandemic, I live on my own, so I've actually been loving the time to myself. And I've just been able to really not feel rushed or obligated to be anywhere. And it's really made me realize what is important in my life, what I want to pursue. And it was a very powerful moment. But I do realize as well, there are times where it's a struggle. And although I like to have my space and recharge just by being alone and in solitude, I made it a priority to connect with my friends and family. So that's one thing that I've noticed, is that I need to have connection or maintain connection with family and friends. So I would schedule a Zoom call with my friends and family once a week. And has helped me stay sane and just to keep that relationship going with them as well.
I love that. That's such great advice. Now, I want to touch on the eCourse Creative, and I want to learn more about it and what you offer your community through it. So if you can give us a little breakdown of the different courses that you're offering and how you serve your community.
Yeah, so right now I offer two things. One being the course curriculum creation and course setup using the Thinkific platform. So I've actually been able to register as a Thinkific partner. So in that space, I help you put together a high-level curriculum for your course, establishing objectives and goals for your students. And once you have that course content, which I also help support if you need any sort of design in terms of collateral, I take all that content and I set it up in the Thinkific platform so it's ready to launch. So I make sure that you're set up in the back end, everything is branded to reflect your brand and is linked to your website and so forth. And the second is marketing strategies for your course. So whether it's utilizing social media or email marketing, we work together to put together a customized plan so you can launch your course with confidence. So I work with a variety of people in different industries. So I've worked with people in the health and wellness. I actually have one pet trainer who's putting together a dog training course. And I have a few health practitioners, teachers. And so it's a variety of industries and professions. And I do not have a course at the moment, but it is in development. So definitely stay tuned.
Oh, that's amazing. And I can't wait to hear about your course. I'm definitely going to look into this because I know I want to create some e-courses down the road. So definitely might look into how you can help me with that.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Now, if anybody wants to learn more about you, where can they connect with you? Where do you hang out the most?
I would say that Instagram is my main platform. So you can find me at the eCourse Creative. And my website is theecourse.creative.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Justina, for taking the time to share your story and your new passion and venture, and for sharing such great advice on how we can pivot, how we can find our true purpose, and how we can just try even though we're scared of failing. So I just love the advice that you've shared. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm Jessica, and thanks for tuning in today to Love Unplugged, the podcast. If there are any questions or topics you'd love answered on the show, head on over to www.projectloveco.com and share your request with me. If you haven't yet, go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast and share it with a loved one. Your feedback means the world to me, and the community we've created is what fuels our discussions here. After all, this is all for you. Join me next time for another unplugged conversation.